Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and I share scrapbooking process videos, project shares, tips and tricks, and more here on my channel. Today I'm working with the Brighter Days kit from MercyTiaraKits.com. The link is in the information section below. And today I'm using some of the cut files from this kit. These cut files are designed by the amazingly talented Nicole Noasad, and I am just resizing a few of them. I deleted some of the ones that I wasn't going to use and just duplicated this flower. And I'll let you know that those two second flowers, like the flower number 3 and 4 on that screen, were actually cut just a tiny bit too small for the intricacy of them. And so I wouldn't recommend that you size them down quite that small, but I'm just going to use a piece of plain white cardstock. This is basil cardstock, and with my silhouette, I have to set the media to heavyweight cardstock when I cut with this, but the result is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm just going to cut these files, and I'm also going to fussy cut some of these flowers that are from the specialty paper that came in this kit. So if you received the Brighter Days kit, you did get a piece of this specialty paper from the Maggie Holmes Woodland Grove collection. And also, if you got the extra pattern paper add-on, you also got a second sheet of this. So I have 2 sheets of this because I did get both of those kits. And I'm just going to cut up one of them, and the other one I'm keeping intact because I do have an idea for it. Now, these are way more flowers than what you saw me cut on my silhouette. That's because I had been trying to cut these with my brother Scan and Cut, which was not going well. And so I changed gears and decided to buy a silhouette because I missed my old cameo. And so anyhow, that's explains that. And the first of those flowers are really not cut very well because I couldn't get the settings right in my Scan and Cut. So I have passed that on to my husband, who uses the Scan and Cut quite often for cutting leather. So we'll let him handle that, and I will use my cameo. As you can see, I'm just looking through this kit because it has been a couple of days, maybe a week or so since I've used it, so I just want to refamiliarize myself with all of my scraps. I've already made, I think, 5 pages with this at this point, so there's lots of scraps, lots of full pieces left over, because I did get the main kit as well as the embellishment kit and the extra pattern paper add-on. So as you can see, I'm just thinking about what might I want to mat this on, and ooh, this one really appeals to me. I love this rainbow swatches of really light pastel paint, and that's a paper by Pinkfresh Studio, so I'm thinking I might want to use that for my background. I'm going to change my mind on that, but at this point, I'm sticking with that idea. So as you can see, I'm just kind of going through, and it occurs to me that the colors in that Paige Evans paper from the Blooming Wild collection, sorry, I had to look it up there. So that Blooming Wild collection, the colors in that paper that also came in the kit really tend to coordinate quite nicely with the colors on this Pinkfresh Studio paper. And that is from the Delightful collection. And so what I thought I would do is cut some strips from this paper and layer them on top of the swatches of color that are already on the Pinkfresh Studio paper. And at first, I was leaning towards the lighter shades, but unfortunately, all of the lighter shades, like the pastel shades on this paper, are really wide swatches of color, and they're not really what I'm looking for. I'd like to layer some strips on this background, and then I'd like to run some sewing across it. And so I thought about maybe layering a couple of different, like a wide with a narrow, and then I thought about cutting down the wide pieces so that they're not so wide, so I could still go with that tone on tone really light look. But the more I played around with this, the more I really liked the look of the more vivid colors on the swatches of paper. And these are not going to run the entire length of the page like this. They're only going to run in the space where the color is. So I think that this is going to look nice. And I like how this looks with my photo. However, my original intention here, I'm just going to tear both ends of this, of each of these strips of paper. My original intention with this photo, because there's a lot of color going on in this photo, my daughter and her best friend have two different colored dresses, obviously. And then there's a third color in the shrub behind them. And then, of course, there's the vivid green on the grass. So this is a very, very colorful photo. I like how it is very much kind of emphasizing the subject, which is the two girls. But my first thought when I wanted to scrapbook this photo was that it would look really great on a mostly white background with just pops of color that coordinate with the dresses, just to bring out the dresses and not have the rose bush, or it's a rhododendron bush, be so dominant in the photo. And so this idea here really gets away from my original intention, but I really like this idea, so I'm going with it anyways. But I am going to abandon it because it's really not what I had in mind. So I do like that background. I'm just going to hang on to it and use it on another layout. So let's go back to my original idea, which was to use a piece of plain white cardstock. Now this is basil plain, it's called basil white is the color, and I think it's listed under mono when you're looking at all the different basil options when you're shopping. So yeah, it's just their basic textured cardstock. It's textured on one side and then not on the other. I'm going to matte this photo in black just to give it more presence on the page. Matting a photo in black or navy blue or whatever your dark neutral is going to be is a really great way to bring some emphasis to your photo and really make it pop on the page. I'm also going to layer it with a matting of this beautiful paper from Simple Stories. It's from the flea market collection. You're My Fave is the name of the paper. It came in, everything that I'm using today came in the kit, so I won't say that over and over again. And now I'm just going to be tucking in some of these fussy cut gold flowers along with the silhouette cut white flowers from the cut files. And I'm putting them in a cluster like this with basically kind of like 3 clusters. And I also picked out this flower which has the purple and the teal or turquoise or whatever that color is. And so I'm going to use that butterfly, but not until the very end. And I'm going to cut down this white cardstock I'm going to cut it down so that I can have a mat around the whole outside of it with that same flea market paper that I've already used. I have 2 pieces of it because I have the add-on, the pattern paper add-on. And I'm just going to rescue a little chunk out of the inside of this because I only need the outside edges, and this paper is so beautiful. I definitely want to use more of it, so I'm going to just rescue that. Every once in a while I'll leave the paper in the center, but almost every time I'll rescue the center. Now this is just a piece of very inexpensive black cardstock that I had in my stash. And the reason I'm using my very, very inexpensive, I actually don't like this cardstock. It's from Colorbach, and it's actually a white core black cardstock. It's super thin and flimsy, and it's not really great. But I do, because it's so inexpensive and because I bought it not knowing how much I wouldn't like it, I have it on hand, and it's really good to use for these sorts of things where there's just a smidgen of black showing. Basically, the black there only serves to accentuate the edge of where the white meets the colored, the patterned paper. So it's a really good use for that cheaper cardstock because only a tiny bit of it is showing. I would like to color match the dresses to further emphasize the dresses. As I mentioned, I'm trying to make the purple and green or aqua or whatever that color is, turquoise. I want those 2 colors to really be accentuated, and there are both of those colors in that flea market paper, but I want to accentuate it even more. So I grabbed my swatches and found 2 colors that match. That Heidi Swap color shine in the color is called Amethyst is perfect. I can't even tell you how much of a great match it is. I don't know if it's going to show up on the on the video here, but it's amazing. So as you can see, my footage changed slightly. I'm now picture in picture, and that is because for the rest of this layout, I have live streamed. And so this all was filmed yesterday while I was live streaming with my patrons. So every month, Patreon members have access to a live stream that runs anywhere between 2 and 5 or 6 hours. This one yesterday was a full 6 hours, and between all of us, we made 17 layouts, and it was really, really fun. So check out my Patreon if you're interested in participating in one of those. So I'm just explaining, basically I'm getting my patron members caught up with what I've already told you. So I'm also showing off that beautiful photo of Liv and Sophia. And so now I have a giant piece of packaging. This is actually the packaging that specialty paper comes in. And I just didn't have a smaller paper on hand. This is just the plastic packaging. I'm going to be using the smooshing technique, and it's actually a lot easier if you use a smaller piece of packaging than this full 12 by 12. But like I said, this is what I had on hand, and I didn't want to dig around looking for more. So I'm going to not like this, but I included the footage because I want you to see. So as you can see, I added some mist and I added some water, and wow, that is a lot darker than what I was expecting it to be. So I'm going to fold that up and keep it because that ink is still good. I might use it. I'm just going to follow this through and see where it goes, even though I don't love it. Sometimes I like to just keep on going with something I don't love just to make sure that I don't end up liking it. I am kissing the paper to the packaging because there's so much ink and that first piece was so big and cumbersome that I didn't want to flip it over. See, I don't like that. So what are we going to do? Well, first, I'm just going to see if I can make it better by just making it look a little bit less blobby. So it looks just like two random weird blobs. And so I thought if I add a little bit here and there, it might make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to add some splatter. And then I'm also just going to flip this around and do more of that packaging. It's called the smooshing technique. Some people call it the smooshing technique. Some people call it the packaging technique. It's basically just a way to apply mist and ink to your page. So I just don't like that. There's no way to rescue it to the point that I'm going to like it. So let's just start with a new piece of paper. I'm going to cut it down to the size that I needed it to be. I think it was 11 inches in order to have that beautiful mat around the outside edge. And now I'm just going to use my pencil here. I'm going to put this a little bit taller than center, but centered horizontally. So vertically it's not centered, but horizontally it is. And I liked that second time that I used that mist. So I liked how it looked with a higher concentration of water and less mist. So I'm going to try that. And yeah, that's more the color that I was looking for. Just going to fix it up a little bit with my paintbrush. And I'm being very kind of casual and not thinking too much about how this works. If you wonder why I keep dipping my paintbrush into my bottle, it's because I don't have water on hand, so I'm just rinsing my brush out. And now that's really beautiful, and I just wanted, because there was a little bit of the turquoise over on the other side of the blue, of the purple, I wanted to put a little bit of purple on the other side of the turquoise just so that that kind of balances out. Now I'm just going to use my heat gun to dry this off because that's a lot of liquid on this. It's just plain cardstock. It's not special mixed media cardstock or anything. I do have some of that on hand, but I'm just not using it today. And I don't mind that my layouts get a little bit warped when I do this. It doesn't really bother me. I find that they tend to flatten out. So look at how much better that looks. Quite a bit better. Now I am going to add just a little bit here of a lighter color, so I added more water to the mist that was already there on my packaging. And I'm just using my brush. It's not the best brush to use with this. A round brush would be better, but I'm just adding a little bit more purple just to smooth out some of those harsh lines. Most of this is going to be covered, so I don't particularly love how this is looking, but as you see, when I cover it up with the photo, most of it is covered, plus I'm going to have a lot of flowers on the edges, so it's going to be okay. I wasn't entirely sure that I liked this the whole time I was doing it, but it turned out okay, and actually more than okay. I love it. But it goes to show that sometimes you just need to keep on going. Like I know I did with the other page, I kind of went so far and then I was like, nope, this isn't the look I wanted on this. But other times you keep on going and you realize, yeah, this actually isn't too bad. And then the more you do, the more you create with it, the more you like it. So I encourage you to persevere even when it looks like things aren't turning out the way that you envisioned, because sometimes it'll end up being even better. So what I don't love about the way that this is, I'm just going to mat this finally, is that it seems like there's actually too much color on the paper. I really wanted a small amount of color coming out around the photo, but it turns out, given the size of the die cuts I'm going to be tucking under this photo, it turns out it's really good that there was a lot, because a lot of it gets covered up. I'm placing this a little bit taller than center, but otherwise I am centering it, which is something I don't typically do. So this is a different layout for me in that the photo is center, and that's rarely the case with me. I put it a little bit taller because I want to put the word prom underneath in the black letters that you see over to the left. Those are eclair letters. They came in the kit and they're my favorite letter sticker of all times. I just adore them. And so as you can see, I'm just holding up that cut file so you can see how pretty it is. I'm going to cut some of them down because I'm tucking them, right? So there's no point in covering the pretty cut files when you can reuse little bits and pieces of them in different places. Now I don't want to put too many under the photo because that's where my title is going to go. I'm actually looking for a second butterfly here, and this circle thing came, these are Pink Fresh Studio vellum die cuts that came in the kit, and I've got some leaves here that I cut off of another layout that I did, and so I might tuck those. They're the right color of purple. And I'm just looking at what the options are, but I think so I can't find another colorful butterfly that is the right colors to go with this page, but I did find that gold vellum butterfly, so I'll use that as my second butterfly. I just wanted two because there's two girls on the page, and I'm going to put this Pink Fresh Studio chipboard flare right there, and then I'll put another one over in the corner, and I will eventually put a third one. I'm going to spell out the word prom now. And I just want the P to be over by the layers of the die cuts. So I just shifted everything over, and I really love how that looks. I find that those white silhouette cut flowers really pop. I'm going to put a third chipboard flare right there. And this is pretty much done. There's just going to be some final touches, and I do have to glue everything down because I had been just tucking and not actually gluing anything down. I did get rid of that vellum circle, that large vellum circle, and replaced it with the chipboard flare because I just like that better. I think that the circle, the vellum circle, was just too busy with a bit of pattern and some writing on it. I'm going to do my journaling just by hand here underneath, and I accidentally spelled Sophia's name wrong because my own daughter is Sophie and she uses a PH, but Sophia uses an F. So I wrote out the journaling. It says Sophia and Liv all dolled up for prom. They got ready together and drove to Public Gardens together. I'm underlining it just to make it feel more anchored on the page. I'm pulling up the wings on both of the butterflies, and that's when I realized, oh, wait a second, I haven't glued anything down except for the butterflies. So I'm going to have to pull everything out and then tuck it right back in. I'm using Tombow Mono Multi for this. This is super strong glue, and so it's a great glue for gluing paper to non-paper, but it's also really great if you just want to use a touch, but you want it to stay put. So that's what I'm doing here, because it's basically the last minute. I forgot to glue these in, and I don't want to have to glue all of the little sections. I just want to put a touch of glue on to hold it in place. I noticed that this cut file here is one that I cut with my brother's Scan and Cut instead of one of my Silhouette ones. So it needed to be trimmed up just a little bit because it didn't fully cut properly. The edges were just a little bit jaggedy. I think there's a problem with my cutting mat, or I don't know what it is, but it's Scott's problem now, not mine. I just threw some money at that problem and it went away just like that. So we are going to tuck that in place, move it down a little bit, and voila, she's all done. Except, hang on a second, I have these enamel dots that came in the kit, and I'm not a huge user of enamel dots usually, but boy, I burned through these enamel dots this month. And I love how these, what I thought were gray enamel dots, they actually look so beautifully purpley, just like Sophia's dress. So I put them in 4 little pairs, so 2 on each side. It's one of those times when I'm breaking the rule of thirds, where, not the rule of thirds, but the idea of visual triangles. Just because there's 2 people, and so it makes sense that there's 2 sides to this layout. There's a blue side and a purple side, and so I thought that it made good sense to go with pairs. Now there are 3 circles on this layout. I wanted to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much to these folks who help make this channel happen. I mentioned earlier some of the perks that they get. If you're interested, check out the link in the information section below. Here are the beautiful photos of this layout. I am so in love with the way that this looks. We do still have some Brighter Days kits, add-ons, and extra paper packs. So if you are interested in picking up one of these kits, head over to MercyTiaraKits.com. Check that out. In a second, you're going to see a screen that shows you some of the places that you can find me. The links for these places are in the information section below. But if you do purchase a kit, please make sure that you head over to the Facebook group, MercyTiara Kit Club Facebook group, and check out what we're doing over there, because there are challenges and everybody's sharing their beautiful pages. It's very inspiring, so make sure you head over there as well. Here's some other videos for you to check out if you missed any, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and have a really great scrappy week.